Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who's a cynic. Hope you are doing well. So I wanted to cover this story once again because we've had new words now from James Gunn. I covered a little bit on my Twitter, but we've also had some responses from people who are coming out in support of him, and I wanted to make a video to explain why I think that's a bad move, why I think that can be almost dangerous in a lot of ways, especially with everything that's been said, everything that's been revealed from his Twitter account, and I really do think that it's important for us to talk about this. So first, let's talk with, what James Gunn actually said. So it says right here, James Gunn comments on being dropped by Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. So if you didn't watch my video yesterday, and if you weren't paying attention to the news yesterday, James Gunn has been officially fired. Disney has officially cut ties with him, so he's not going to be making Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and he is not likely going to be attached to any Disney film in the near future, and probably never again, unless, as I said before, I think the best way for him to approach this, the best way for anyone who has said things like this to approach this, is to say, I was wrong, these were indeed disgusting, and I need help, and I'm going to go get help. He decided not to do that. Instead, this is how he responded. He said, "My words of nearly a decade ago were at the time totally failed, unfortunate efforts to be provocative." I just want to stop right there because even though he's admitting that they are totally failed and unfortunate efforts to be provocative, he is trying to explain why he made the comments. Instead of just saying, these were awful comments, I don't know why I said them, they are just disgusting, I need help, he said, well, this is the reason why. I was trying to be provocative. Obviously, I failed, but I was trying to be provocative, so therefore it has an explanation. And I just have a problem with that. I don't like how he's just trying to explain and almost in some way justify his comments. There's no way to justify anything that he said. There's no explanation. It was sick, it was disgusting, it was disturbing. You need help? Move on. That's how you should have responded instead of just trying to explain it right off the bat. He did this in his I talked about this the other day too, is that he listed 5 things on Twitter. He listed 5 points of an explanation as to why he made the comments, and then also as a half-hearted apology, because again, if you're trying to explain why you did something, you're not really coming off as having a genuine apology, at least for me. He says, I have regretted them for many years since, and yet they remained on for several years. Not just because they were stupid, not funny at all, not at all funny, wildly insensitive, and certainly not provocative like I had hoped, but also because they don't reflect the person I am today or have been for some time. You say this like it would happen 20 years ago, and yet this is something that happened as recently as 2012. And some people might say, oh, it's almost a decade ago. But at the same time, you can't just say, oh, this is the reason why I did it. Oh, but I'm a different person now. Yet they remained up there, and it wasn't until you were exposed that you decided to say anything about it. Like, that just does not make any sense to me. And also, again, it just really brings into question, is he really being genuine here? Is he really being, I mean, had he kept his job, had everything gone the same way, had the media come out and support him for his comments, which I'm so glad they haven't, at least at this point, I don't know if he would have been saying the same thing. Maybe that's the reason why he's not taking a full mea culpa, not doing a full, hey, I'm a sick person for saying these comments and I obviously need some kind of help. If I ever thought that these were funny, let alone provocative. He continues, regardless of how much time has passed, I understand and accept the business decisions taken today. Even these many years later, I take full responsibility for the way I conducted myself then. All I can do now, beyond offering my sincere and heartfelt regret, is to be the best human being I can be, accepting, understanding, committed to equality, and far more thoughtful about my public statements and my obligations to our public discourse. To everyone inside my industry and beyond, I again offer my deepest apologies. Love to you. And then you see a little bit of virtue signaling at the very end, trying to say, oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to be the best person that I can. I'm going to fight for equality and all these other things. And no, that's great if you feel that way, but that's just not what you should have said. It could have been so quick. I said this before. I follow somebody who covered news for a wrestling site. He did something very inappropriate with a fan while he was in a relationship. He took full responsibility for it. He said, I'm sick. I obviously need some kind of help. He got help, and guess what? Now he's still making content, and he still has a lot of supporters. James Gunn, on the other hand, what he decided to do was say, many years ago, I totally failed. I'm just explaining why I did these things, even though they're totally wrong, and I disavowed them. I was just trying to be provocative. I'm sorry, but I mean, some people might think I'm nitpicking there, and I can understand where you might be coming from, but for me, to start off an apology that way of trying to explain why you did something, this is something where you just don't have to explain that. You just have to say, I did something wrong, I'm sick, I need help, let me go get help. And now we move on to the next part, and that was Dave Bautista and his response to this. And this is something where I think Dave Bautista's not really understanding the ramifications of what he's saying. And I don't really think he's actually read the tweets in full, because I don't think he understands what he's trying to defend here. Now, I know that Dave Bautista owes a lot to James Gunn. I mean, obviously, Drax the Destroyer was a huge role for him. It really kind of changed the game for him. It pretty much made him a huge Hollywood star at this point, really, because he was kind of, struggling a little bit to get his name in Hollywood with certain films, and that was the film that put him on the map, and now you see him being offered so many different roles. And so I understand why he feels a dedication to him, but at the end of the day, I don't think this is a good move by Dave Bautista. But let's actually read it. So it says, James Gunn, Dave Bautista defends Guardians of the Galaxy director, and this was the tweet from Dave Bautista. It says, I will have more to say, but for right now, all I will say is this. James Gunn is one of the most loving, caring, good-natured people I have ever met. He's gentle, kind, and cares deeply for people and animals. He's made mistakes. We all have. I'm not okay with what's happening to him. So I agree with a couple of points. One, he is human. He does make mistakes. That is absolutely true. But the difference is that when a lot of people make mistakes, they own it completely, and then if it's something to this extent where it's almost a sickness, you go and get help. Now, some people might say, are you trying to say that he is the things that he talked about? Again, there's no real evidence other than the words that he said. That's why I do think that there should be some kind of investigation just to make sure, because I think the things that he said merit that. I think there's enough in the things that he said, and just these things, oh, I was just trying to be provocative. You don't say the things that he said in those tweets. Again, if you want to actually read them, because I don't really want to say them again, because some of them are just quite disgusting, go watch my video yesterday where I talk about some of the things that he said. But you don't just say those things to be provocative, to try and be so-called a funny person or a comedian. You just don't do that. So I don't think Dave is really understanding exactly what was being said there. And again, I agree with that first part, saying that he might indeed, to Dave Bautista, might be a very loving and caring person. I don't know him personally, so he very well could be a good guy, but it does not change the fact that he said these things, and they bring up a lot of questions about him, about his personal life, and about certain things that he may or may not have done or may not have been witness to. And I think that that's something that needs to be focused on. That's something that cannot be forgotten. But that last part especially is where I vehemently disagree with Dave Bautista. He says, I'm not okay with what's happening to him. Again, you have that opinion, but I think that last line is dangerous. Are you telling me that a guy who said these comments, some of which bring up a lot of questions about him, about possible criminal activity, and again, we don't know that. That's why I think there should be an investigation, even just a preliminary one, just to look into it, just to make sure, because again, you don't just say those things for no reason. I think that because of those reasons, you can't just say, oh, I'm not okay with what's happening. If I, and I said this before, if I as a teacher were to say the things that James Gunn said, I would expect to be fired, because I would have no excuse. Because also, too, I would not be surprised if I got a knock on the door for some of the things that I had said. Guess why? Because those things were disgusting. So why should the same thing not apply to a Hollywood director? This is the big problem, is that we see as people in Hollywood, people in the media, they almost try and live by a different set of standards. See, if someone like us, if someone who was a nobody, someone who did not have millions of dollars, if we had said these things, we would be going through so much hell right now as far as legal ramifications, etc. I haven't even heard of anything going on right now with the legal stuff going on with James Gunn. I don't even know if that's going to happen at all. But I guarantee you, if we had said those things, guess what would have happened? Our Twitter would have been restricted. We would have been reported. There would have been some kind of investigation, etc. Because guess what? We're just normal people, and we have to live by the law. It's just very interesting that these Hollywood types just feel like they're above it and feel like, oh, this is terrible. His job shouldn't be taken from him because of the things that he said. If he had said something off color, if he had said an insensitive joke, an actual joke, something to the effects of like Roseanne Barr, for example, she said an insensitive joke. And obviously, I think that you could definitely defend that to actually be a joke more than anything else compared to what James Gunn said. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that would be something where you could absolutely be critical of that person, and you could probably say, you know what, I'm not okay with what's going on. I'm not okay with her getting fired, etc. Again, you would have at least some ground to stand on. But when you look at the comments, especially what he says about children, especially what he says about rape and all these other disgusting things he talks about, I'm sorry, you cannot just say, I'm not okay with what's happening. He deserves this. Disney has every right to do it as well, and I know that there are a couple people that don't agree. They talk about free speech, and hey, I'm all for free speech. I'm a very big person on that. I think that everyone should have a right to say what they want, but you also have to understand that there are ramifications for what you say. Again, I would expect my job to fire me if I said these things, so I think that James Gunn, and I'm glad that he's at least accepting it, saying I take the punishment that I'm given, but I think that if the only thing that happens to him is that he just loses his job, I think he's getting off light, and I think that we see that a lot happen with Hollywood people. I mean, there have been people who have committed manslaughter. There are people who have committed so many things who are part of the Hollywood, who have been part of these massive sports teams, who have just gotten really, in essence, a slap on the wrist. When if any one of us had done the same thing, it would have been almost life in prison, 25 years to life. It's so interesting that they're just not held by the same standard, and I think that Dave Bautista is making a mistake here by siding with James Gunn at this time. Again, I think that if he had kept if he had kept most of the tweet, it would have been okay to an extent. But that last point really does bother me a lot. Again, saying I'm not okay with what's happening to him. I'm sorry, but how can you not be okay with someone being punished for the things that they said in the way that he said them? He didn't just say jokes, he said statements. And these are statements that raise a lot of questions. These are statements that are disgusting, and these are statements that should be taken very, very seriously. So guys, what are your thoughts on this? What do you think about Dave Bautista? Do you think that he made a mistake by speaking up for James Gunn? Do you agree with Dave Bautista in standing up for James Gunn? Please let me know in the comments below. I'd greatly appreciate it. And also, I'd love to have that discussion with you guys as well. And if you like this video, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Have a great day. And as always, God bless.